morning, ladies and gentlemen. This is J.R. Moore coming to you live from deep in the mountains of the Missouri Ozarks. On Friday, the 30th day of August, year of our Lord 2019, and welcome to the John Moore Show. We begin our shows with a Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Prep tip of the day. I want to encourage all of you to spend time with your team, work together, play together, pray together. All those activities have different components to them, different aspects of people's personalities. It's really important to know all aspects of the personalities of your team members. Very important. We have a patient waiting in the green room, my friend Tom Berryhill. Tom is a gentleman who began a quest more than half a century ago to understand, comprehend, eventually become quite expert in anything and everything related to radio frequency engineering, ham radio communications, electronics in general. We're going to talk about emergency survival communications. Good morning, Tom.
Hi, John. Good morning. How are you doing today?
Well, really good. Had some internet issues. It was probably a temporary loss of power, but I had to disconnect and reconnect everything to get the internet working properly again. That was only 15 minutes before the show began, so it was kind of a frenzied rush there to get everything fixed and squared away. But we got it done. That's the only thing that matters. How about yourself, sir?
Oh, pretty good, John. It sounds like you were dealing with emergency communications there at the last minute.
Well, it was a quasi-emergency, not that life and limb were at risk, but it's far better to do the show on Skype than it is on the telephone. Well, Tom...
well, it sounds good.
Yes, sir. The bizarre, freakish weather events continue. I heard a report yesterday of some location that had, I think it was 5 feet of hail, if you can imagine such a thing. It's hard to comprehend hail 5 feet deep. But these bizarre weather events will, and already have, impact regular communications, cellular telephones, landline telephones, the things that we depend on for everyday use. And when those things go out, if you don't have ham radio, you're pretty much stuck, aren't you?
That's really true. That can easily happen. And you know, John, these regular communication systems, being cellular, perhaps law enforcement, fire, all types of land mobile equipment that's used for in your local area for the infrastructure, the roads, bridges, the utility workers, those systems can easily be impacted by hail like that. If a large hailstone hits one of those antennas on those systems, it can easily damage it beyond repair, and they're off the air. If those antennas are bent or hit by heavy hail like that, it can easily render them total garbage, useless. So the thing with ham radio is that the ham operators are pretty skilled in building their own antennas, even from emergency. In an emergency, they can use just junk equipment and pieces of wire and things that are laying around. The ham operators are required to know some of that to even get the license, how to cut the wire and to the proper length and make those antennas from scratch. It's not hard to do. And then as far, you know, John, I focus on HF communications, which is shortwave region for the radio spectrum. That's from 2 to 30 megahertz. And those frequency ranges, just very thin wires will work fine. Wires that are small enough and limber enough where a hailstone could hit it and just maybe move it sideways or bounce off of it and not really even harm it. So those antennas would still be usable or easily repaired or put back up, and you'd be back on the air to provide communications for your area in the event of an outage like that. But heavy icing and hail, things like that, do really mess up these antenna systems. And the cell antennas are very large. I don't know if you've ever looked up on some of those cell towers, but some of those antenna arrays are quite large, and it could easily be damaged by hail.
Absolutely. Well, I recall in east central Missouri, um, the winter of 73, 74, we had an ice storm. Boy, oh boy, did we have an ice storm. I remember driving down Interstate 55, and it looked like some kind of science fiction movie of what an ice storm could look like. Knocked out power for more than a week in much of the area, due largely to, at the time, the power companies, utility companies, were not trimming the trees hanging near and above the power lines. The consequences of that storm instituted the power lines, the power companies, utility companies hiring outside vendors to maintain those right-of-ways and keep their limbs off from damaging the power lines. So that's been, 45 years ago, and those protocols and those outside vendors continue to keep the power lines pretty clear most of the time. But that was a wake-up call, and sometimes that's what it takes, is a massive disaster for people to wake up and mitigate against the same thing happening in the future, doesn't it, Tom?
Well, that's usually what it takes, and unfortunately, there's a lot of destruction and misery that comes with it to provide that wake-up call. But I kind of remember that storm, John, and then of course the storm the snowstorm that came in, and was it end of January, early part of February of '82, I believe it was.
Right.
That was
right.
that shut down the entire St. Louis region, and it was. I remember people going up and down.
Right. You're going up and down what?
Well, people were pulling sleds down South Limburg Boulevard there in the South St. Louis County area. There was no traffic, and they were using sleds to take the kids to the store and haul their groceries back.
Right.
It was amazing. John, what I remember the most about that is how you could hear for such a great distance. A car was coming down the road, you could hear it a half a mile away. It was so quiet.
Right. Well, and when you live in a country, you become much more aware of the ambient noise level in urban suburban areas that you get so used to it. When you live in an urban suburban area, you don't even recognize there is an ambient noise level. And yeah, that snowstorm I remember well. My automobile parked in a driveway, which at the time was a Saab Sonnet, a little two-door fiberglass sports car. The snow was literally even with the top of the car. Now, if you're up in Minnesota, you may think, what's the big deal? But this far south, that's pretty extraordinary. We got some notices here, Tom, that for people, if they're interested in learning more about ham radio, there's 3 conventions coming up in the next 4 weeks. ARRL conventions, Amateur Radio Relay League. And it's at their website, the ARRL, that's Alpha Romeo Lima.org website, and it's linked to my links page. The first one is the New England Division Convention in Boxborough, Massachusetts. That's September 6th, 7th, and 8th. The next one's in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, the Central Division Convention. That's September 27th and 28th. And then the Wells Fargo, North Dakota Division Convention, only one day, September 28th. These are places where if you happen to go to one of them, you'll meet dozens of men and women who are participating in the ham radio hobby. There'll be vendors there selling high-quality equipment, probably vendors selling high-quality used equipment at good prices. And you can meet people, get access to the material you need to get started in the ham radio community. And that's what we do every week, Tom, is encourage people to become part of the ham radio community, don't we, sir?
Yeah, that's right, John. And I'd like to also add, the weekend of September 21st, there's a pretty nice ham fest in Peoria, Illinois. I'm thinking about going to that myself. It's pretty good size. It wasn't in earlier years. I don't know if it's still as big of an event as it used to be, but still it's pretty well attended. And if you're interested in anything like this, they have a huge flea market area where there's all types of trading, buying, selling, and just yakking about ham radio. And you'll see a lot of people that know quite a bit about it, and a lot of equipment that would be available that might pique your interest. And you can ask questions and learn about it. I'm sure they will have testing sessions. Volunteer examiners will be there for testing. I've seen very few hamfests where they don't do some sort of test session. So if you want to take your tests, you could check with those with the club that sponsors that hamfest. I'm sure there's information online about it, but
there
it's a good
is.
one to go to.
The hamfest is 2 days, September 21st and 22nd. It's at the Exposition Gardens in Peoria, Illinois. The address is 1601 West Northmore, one word, West Northmore Road. The website is Whiskey 9 Uniform Victor India.org. That's Whiskey 9 Uniform Victor India.org. And it's sponsored by the Peoria Area Amateur Radio Club. So let's see. If you don't have internet access, you can give them a call at call Deb, and her telephone number is 309-453-9331. I say again, call Deb, DEB, 309-453-9331. So it's 2 days, September 21st and 22nd. If you want to get the good bargains, you want to get there the first day, don't you, Tom?
Oh, absolutely. And you want to be there when the sun's coming up, and the good deals will be out there. But if somebody's just getting started and interested in learning more about it and getting in on conversations, there'll always be some hams hanging around a table at the flea market talking about the technology and getting started, and antennas and radios. You can ask questions. These guys and these gals will be more than happy to help you. And it's just a good way to see what it's all about, see what the equipment is like, what it looks like, how much does it cost. There'll be vendors there selling brand new equipment, as well as items out in the flea market area that are used, as well as all types of connectors, wire, solder, tools, everything you can think of that would help you with electronics in general, as well as ham radio. And
it's no longer a requirement that your ham radio shack be aligned with knotty pine and that you smoke Prince Albert pipe tobacco. You no longer have to do that, do you, Tom?
No, you don't, John, but I'll tell you something I'm kicking around because I found a deal on a broadcast transmitter. I'm really thinking about putting in a 1 kilowatt AM radio station transmitter. I'm talking to a guy that's got one for sale, and it would fit right in with that scene, you know, the knotty pine and the pipe tobacco. But this thing is 78 inches tall, about 30 inches wide, and about 30 inches deep. It's the size of the old style telephone booth where you went in and closed the door so you could talk on the phone privately. That's how big this thing is. So that would and it's got windows on there so you can see the gigantic tubes glowing in the dark, and it's AM. And I'm really thinking about doing that and putting that thing on the 160 meter band, and then somehow, some way, putting up a quarter wave vertical antenna for that. That'd be 130 feet tall, and it's something I've always wanted to do, and I certainly have the space to do it out here in the country. It's just moving that thing and going to Tennessee to get it, and 1,000 pounds that thing weighs.
Okay,
so
it weighs 1,000 pounds, and it's all. It would be very EMP resistant, being the vintage it is. So once this is set up, you got 1,000 watts, and you're on the 160 megahertz or what is it? Kilohertz?
160 meter band. That's 1.8 to 2.0 megahertz. This transmitter is made by Gates Corporation in Quincy, Illinois. A lot of broadcast equipment was made in Quincy, Illinois. And probably, I don't know this for a fact, but probably because of early day ham radio operators that were interested in broadcasting and probably started making transmitters, and one thing led to another, and it just turned into an industry that had its birthplace in Quincy, Illinois. But that's where the transmitter was made, and it's from the mid-'60s, 1960s, excellent condition. But that would be definitely EMP-proof, but it was made to tune from 500 kilohertz approximately all the way up to 1.6. It'll go higher than that. I saw some specs that said it would go to 2 megahertz. So without any modifications, it will tune the entire AM broadcast band all the way up all the way to the end of the 160-meter ham band. That ham band is right above the broadcast band, and it has propagation over the ground wave and sky wave, and all. It's pretty much the same as how an AM radio station would work. So it's just be something just to play with. Just I
was going to say, once it's set up, what would you do with it? You broadcast to whom, for what reason?
Well, I would use it as a ham radio transmitter. You push the button to talk and let back on the button, let it go to listen. There's a few modifications you have to do to use it for that, but a lot of hams are still interested in the AM, the old-time AM broadcasting type of equipment, and they actually modify these transmitters from AM radio stations that have gone off the air. They'll get their hands on these things and retrofit them to work in the ham bands. It's not that hard to do. You have to change the coils and the capacitors in the RF amplifier stage so that they'll resonate in the ham radio band. And most of the time they'll put these on a 160-meter band, which is 1.8 to 2 megahertz, or they'll put them on the 75-meter band, which is it's 80 and 75. The phone part of the band is called 75 meters, and that's around 3.8 to 4 megahertz. But that's where it would end up. I'd put it on 100.
We got a break. We got a caller on hold. We'll be right back.
Public Broadcasting Network depends on listener support of our advertisers and of our sponsors. We'd like to especially thank all of you who have taken advantage of our fundraiser with FrontSite Bonus. Those who are now FrontSite members, please train as soon as possible for your sake and for that of our nation. And please consider sharing your training and what you've learned when you arrive home. Republic Broadcasting Network has to stop promoting this fundraiser on air and on the website in just a few days. Dr. Ignatius Piazza, president of FrontSite, made a gracious exception to his no media rule for us at Republic Broadcasting Network. Thank you, Dr. Piazza. And once you've been to FrontSite, feel free to call your favorite host and share your experience on the air. We can continue this fundraiser without media help, but it'll be totally up to the listeners to spread the information. Please call Dan Sutterfield in Missouri at 573-465-2356, 573-465-2356. That's 573-465-2356.
Tired of being lied to by mass media? It's growing more and more apparent today that news is received less and less through standard media outlets. Even with a growing audience every day, RBN is beginning to direct more efforts into social media. Social media and the use of the Internet is fast becoming the primary source of people for news, regardless of demographic. RBN has set out to provide some of the best news on the Internet through republicbroadcasting.org, and also has begun to use the tools to our advantage by way of social media. Republic Broadcasting is now operating a Facebook page to function as yet another avenue to have our collective voice reach new audiences across not only America, but across the globe as well. The Facebook page features not only news, but also an RBN player to listen to our broadcasts. Get involved by visiting facebook.com/Republic Broadcasting and liking our page and share it with your friends and family, because you can handle the truth.
All right, we're back, ladies and gentlemen, J.R. Moore here on Friday the 30th of August. We're going on a cruise. It will be fun. If you choose it to be, it could be romantic. It will be informative. All those things. We're leaving Port Canaveral Saturday the 9th day of February, returning a week later on the 16th. Valentine's Day is right in the middle of the cruise. It'll be a lot of fun. And, of course, I'll be there. Leon Green will be there. We're hoping that one or two of our other hosts, guest hosts, will be here. And, all the details are there at my website. You can sign up right now. Or you can call our cruise director for more information. She'll be glad to mail you a full-color brochure. Our cruise director is Betsy Murphy. I'll give you her telephone number twice, slowly, 636-530-9502. I say again, 636-530-9502. Visiting with Tom Berryhill, we're talking about emergency survival communications. And Tom, we got a caller on hold here. John in Tennessee. Good morning, John.
Good morning, John. Good morning, Tom. Thanks for taking my call. Tom, two questions. 3 men that I work with and myself are really considering getting into ham radio. So my question for you is, what do you do about, how do you study for it? Where do you go? Where's the information?
Okay, John, here's what... Yeah, go ahead, John. Go ahead.
Everything's at the ARRL.website. Everything you need. You'll find your local ham radio club. You'll have access to study material. Everything you need right there at ARRL.org. John, anything else?
Yeah, one other thing. Tom, you mentioned a 1,000-watt radio in Tennessee. Please tell me that it's not in Middle Tennessee.
It's where? What town?
I know
would you
one.
say?
It's not in Middle Tennessee, is it?
No. This is near. Well, there's several of these units they're for sale all the time, John. And this particular one is near Memphis, Tennessee.
Okay, well, that's a good thing. I'm glad it's not near my area because there is one 2 or 3 miles from the house, and I was hoping he wasn't selling it. So, anyway,
was it a radio?
I appreciate it.
Is it a radio? Is it a radio station?
It's a AM. It's an AM radio station, but from what I understand, you said they can be modified to work as a ham, right?
Yeah, they all of these transmitters can easily be put on the shortwave spectrum. The reason the big broadcast transmitters are so attractive to use is because they're built for continuous duty. They're built to output that type of power level 24/7. So the power supply components, the transformers, all the wiring, everything, all the components are built in a very rugged way to withstand those types of conditions. So you can modify the coils, the capacitors that are in what's called the tank circuit or the output circuit where it feeds the antenna, and all of that can be easily modified. Well, I say easily. If you have the tools and the equipment, it can be easily modified to operate all throughout the shortwave spectrum. There's a few things you have to pay attention to, but the basis of any shortwave transmitter is right there in that cabinet that used to be an AM radio station. So you can modify it and use it for Morse code or CW operation. You could also use it for AM, and you could now would not do single sideband. There's ways to do that, but you could use it as an amplifier for a lower power single sideband transmitter. But there's better ways to do that. So it's mainly for the nostalgia of AM broadcasting is where a lot of these things are put back into service, and most of them end up on the 160 meter and 75 meter ham radio bands, and these guys put them on the air and they use. Go ahead, John.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. If someone were to consider something like that, what are they looking at as far as investment financially to do that?
Well, to buy a transmitter, those things can be, I've seen them where they pay you to get it out of there. You have to get it out of the radio station, and they'll pay you to get it. All the way to a couple of $1,000s. I've never seen one for more than $2,000. The one I'm looking at's around $700. And then you have to put up the antenna. Now, if you want to have a vertical antenna on there to radiate that signal at 160 meters, that's about 130 feet tall if you want a full-size vertical antenna. Now, you can use a shorter antenna, which I might do, and then you have to have a special, what they call a matching network right there at the base of the antenna. You have a large inductor, which is a coil, and a capacitor to tune it. And it's almost like an antenna tuner, but you want to do that right at the base of the antenna. That's the best way to do it. And then you have to be very careful, John, because even with a low-powered transmitter, when you start using antenna tuners like this at the base of the antenna to adjust a sharp antenna to that transmitter, you can have several thousand volts of RF energy there. It can really burn you. It'll burn you.
Dangerous
and kill
stuff.
you.
Dangerous stuff.
Very dangerous.
John, thank you for the call. We got to bomb the
Okay, well, thank you.
We'll be right back. Stay tuned,
you.
everybody.
You are tuned in to the Republic Broadcasting Network. Visit our website by going to republicbroadcasting.org.
All right, we're back. This is Tony J.R. Moore here on Friday. It is Friday, the last day of August. My website is thelibertyman.com. That's thelibertyman.com. Lots of discussion, lots of concern about the economy. If you're concerned about the economy, well, there's a red box with a gold ribbon on it. It looks like a Christmas package at my website at thelibertyman.com. Click on that, and you'll be at the landing site for Steve Hunt's landing site for Swiss America. This is the real deal. Steve is our economic advisor, the John Moore Radio Show economic advisor, and he'll give you the straight skinning on gold and silver, educate you, and find out what your goals are and help you meet your goals. Also on our website, of course, our energy clinics. We have the Labor Day sale going. Labor Day sale goes until midnight Monday. And if you want to participate, well, you have until midnight Monday to mail your check or money order, have it postmarked by midnight Monday. $25 off energy cleaners, 10% off mattress pads, and that's it. That's the sale. And if you want to participate, this is your opportunity to do so. Oh, you can, that's right. You can call my toll-free line 24 hours a day. Here it is, 800-592-9543. I say again, 800-592-9543. When you place your order, the automated system charges full price. I manually make the sale price refund. So that's how that's done. We're visiting with Tom Berryhill. We're talking about emergency survival communications. And Tom, while I'm thinking about it, I'm going to need more energy cleaners, sir. ASAP.
Yeah, John, they're in progress right now. So
in progress, in the works. Okay.
In the works. We're constantly producing those units.
All right.
For nearly 20 years now.
Well, might make a career of it, huh?
I'm thinking about it. You know, John, and on that subject, I know there's a lot of homeschoolers that listen to your broadcasts, and people should keep this in mind. If there's any young person in your family, if you have children that are interested in learning how to do things, get them involved in ham radio. I started at a very young age, and I've never taken a course in electronics. I never have, John. It's all been hands-on. I learned by reading books and experimenting, and I ended up making a career out of it, and I've worked on some very sophisticated communication systems, biomedical equipment. It's far-reaching what you can do if you learn the basics. by experimenting with ham radio. It will be a training ground for many different disciplines in the electronics industry. So you could get a young person started. I'm a perfect example of that because that's the only training I ever had. And from that, I have built commercial radio stations from the ground up, FM stations, and it allows you to have the skills to do that. You can learn that as you go, learn about electronics in general. You can take it to any extreme that you want to, or just be very casual and talk on the radio to other people and learn as you go. You go as far as you want, or just do it as a casual type of hobby. So that's why I encourage anybody with young people in their family to get them involved. I think they would find it to be a very beneficial thing for those young people. I guess you're not there, John. Maybe your phone cut out. I don't know. I'll just keep talking. But anyway, back to the broadcast transmitter that I'm working on here in Missouri. Something to also take into consideration is that transmitter, while it's on the 160-meter band, it used to be an AM radio station. That transmitter could easily be put back into service on the AM band in the event of an all-out catastrophe where there was no communications available and you needed to get information out over a wide regional area. That transmitter on an emergency basis could easily be put back on any frequency in the AM broadcast band to serve a community or an entire region with emergency broadcast. You could leave it on the air. It could be powered from a generator. So that transmitter could be very useful in trying times. And that's something that I did keep in the back of my mind in the event something like that happened, that would be a broadcast station. It could be put to use for emergency purposes. Back with us yet, John? I guess not. Maybe there's some equipment failures there. Anyway, that's what I'll be doing with the transmitters, experimenting on the 160-meter band. And then I do use, of course, the HF communications is my favorite mode of ham radio, and that's the 2 megahertz, or the 1.8 megahertz is the lower end. That's the 160-meter band up through 30 megahertz, or 29.7. That's the top end of the 10-meter band. And most of the work that I do is on Morse code on the 40-meter band, in the lower part of the 40-meter band, 7.0 to 7.3 megahertz. And that's where you would, the 40-meter band would be extremely useful day and night for regional and wider range communications in the event of an emergency. There are established networks that operate on a daily basis on that ham radio band that you could participate in. You can check in. A lot of mobile units are installed in cars, trucks, RVs, over-the-road rigs. They'll have their HF radio equipment in there, and they check in on a regular basis on these networks to get information out, just general discussion. But it's a casual thing until there's an emergency. Now, with some of these storms coming in the southeast part of the country, Florida and the Caribbean, they will be using ham radio, I guarantee it, to relay a lot of information from those areas. If there's any major outages, the ham operators will step up and provide communications. A lot of it will be by digital, and there's a tremendous interest in that nowadays. Everybody likes texting with their phones, but on the ham radio equipment, you can attach computers, laptops, even tablet-type computers are used somewhat on the digital modes, where they interface the computer equipment with the ham radio equipment, and you can transmit your text and email-type messages worldwide. And everybody should keep in mind that this is without any type of cellular telephone infrastructure. There's not a cell tower you have to worry about. It's your antenna system to the distant station you're communicating with, to their antenna system. So you transmit over these wide areas and everything in between without having any type of infrastructure other than what you provide yourself. So that's why it's so handy to have this type of equipment in major outages, any type of emergency situation. You'd be able to have nearly instant communications worldwide, and especially on a regional basis. Since so many emergencies are regional in nature, you'd be able to supply really needed communications in those areas. And then, of course, there's a VHF. That's the 2-meter ham radio bands. That's 144 to 148 megahertz. If you have scanners, you can easily hear the ham operators talking in those ranges. There is digital communications there as well. A lot of it, though, is by voice modes of communications on FM. And there's repeater systems where they take the weak mobile signal and repeat that with a station that's usually on a very tall tower or a tall building or on top of a mountain. They'll pick up that weak signal and rebroadcast it on another channel with a very high power level, so that the communications is extended over a very wide area. So those systems are very handy to have and are very useful if you're traveling, because the antennas can be quite small on a vehicle. You might have an antenna that's only on 2 meters, for example. That antenna would be about 19 inches long. It can just be a very thin whip antenna made out of stainless steel wire, nothing unsightly, very almost invisible sometimes. You see them on police cars, just a small wire antenna that's a foot and a half long or so. That works quite well with those systems and can give you very wide coverage. You can also talk car to car over many miles if you have a high enough power unit in the car. So 2 meters is very handy for emergency communications in your general area, your regional area, and local communications. But for the wide area, which is what I focus on, that would be HF systems. It's important to have all of that equipment available if you're serious about emergency communication. Sounds like you might be back, John.
Well, I'm back. During Hurricane Katrina, just afterwards, I was bidding on a contract to protect a hospital down there with my security team, and HF Communications. We were going to have a base station up here in Viburnum, Missouri, a warehouse and an airstrip and an aircraft to bring down supplies, and of course a compatible HF station down at the hospital to be able to communicate back and forth, because we couldn't count on anything working other than what we had proprietary. And we didn't get the contract, but that's what we were going to do, was use HF to communicate with my security team and our base station up here in Missouri. That's the way to do it. HF was the best way to communicate 80 years ago, and it's still the best way to communicate, isn't it?
Well, it really is, John, and I've mentioned this before, that in St. Louis County, going north on Highway 141, right at Interstate 64, I still call it Highway 40, but they call it 64 now. There's a Missouri Department of Transportation building there, and they have an HF dipole antenna on the roof. I just see these antennas driving around. I just zero in on stuff like that because I know what it's for and what they're doing with it. But they have an emergency system there. Now, most of these state agencies are set up with this type of equipment. They don't use it on a regular basis. There's no need to, because they have some very wide area coverage with their VHF systems that they normally use, the two-way radios in the trucks and vehicles that they use on a daily basis. But in an all-out emergency, they would those systems were shut down because some of them are interconnected and could maybe lose part of that infrastructure. They would go to the HF system, which would give them statewide and actually multiple states. They'd be able to talk to multiple states from any of those systems throughout the state they're located in. So that's what they would revert to in the event everything else was out. So I'm finding those types of systems are installed all over the place. I was going by a hospital the other day, and I noticed HF antenna systems on top of a hospital. So perhaps they're using them in hospitals as well. I don't know. And I tend to not want to ask because I have a feeling that if you go in and start asking about their communications infrastructure, you would be viewed as some sort of terrorist or something like that.
Unless you had a personal connection before you walked in the door. We got a caller on hold here. We got Jerry.
Good morning, Tom and John. I called in for a specific question, but I'm going to address the HF and systems and what have you that you're seeing on these hospitals. There's a ham operator here in my area. He is a member of MERS and Aries, I think it is, and they've got set up where they, if the internet goes down, they can transfer information, medical records and what have you, via VHF, UHF, and HF to get around cell phones or internet and this sort of thing. So it's actually a ham radio network that they're developing. You may know more about that, John or Tom, than I do, but I think that's one of the reasons we're seeing a bunch of that.
Well, that could be, Jerry. Now, did you mention Mars, M-A-R-S?
Mars or MERS? I don't know.
Mars.
Yeah, something like that. MERS.
Mars.
Mars
is Mars.
Mars is the military affiliate radio system, MARS, and that is usually ham operators that operate, and those are not ham radio systems, by the way. They're military affiliated, and they operate right outside the ham radio bands. You'll hear them usually on the lower frequencies, but they'll be right above the 75-meter band and around 4.0 to 4.1 megahertz in that range. I don't know the exact frequencies they use. And then they have other frequencies. I hear them quite often right above the 75-meter band, and they would be allowed to do that. In an emergency, I'm sure the hams could do that too. I don't know about the medical records, with the HIPAA stuff and all that. I don't know how involved they would get, but it would be quite easy to transmit encrypted data on the Mars frequencies to help out these hospitals in an emergency like that. That's actually a very good approach to getting that job done.
There's like I said, there's two ham operators in Barnett, Texas, and what have you that are real active. They have weekly check-ins for all of the state of Texas and maybe some of the surrounding states. It's a pretty entailed infrastructure that they've got going down here, and they start to gear up because of the hurricane season and whatever. But I find that kind of interesting that they fall back on us amateurs to bail them out. Hey, but anyway, what do you know about HARP, Tom?
Well, I know a little bit about it. I remember when it first went on the air, they asked the ham operators to tune in on the HF frequencies that they were using. One of them, I believe, was right below 7 megahertz, the 40-meter band. I actually heard it. I was not too impressed. It didn't sound very loud to me. I don't remember exactly what I heard, but then I've also heard that the thing's been disabled and it's taken off the air.
No,
so I don't think they even use it anymore.
No, HARP is not used anymore. We got another call.
Okay. I'll pursue that subject later. Y'all have a good weekend. Thanks for taking the call.
You, Jerry. Our last caller this hour will be Glenn. And
good morning, John. Good morning, Tom. Hi.
You're on the air. Go
Can you hear me? Okay, good.
Go ahead, Glenn.
Very good. You're talking about, I heard you mention Mars, military affiliate radio service. The other one you might be thinking of course, is RACES, the Radio Amateur Civil Emergency Service. which that is ham based, and they do coordinate with civil authorities. It's rather than military authorities for the most part. But I'm not sure how much we see. The emphasis these days is so on getting and keeping the cell phones up. I hear during these hurricane warnings, making sure people have a way to charge their devices, which is interesting. In the middle of a hurricane, the emphasis stays on the smartphones and stuff.
Well, but what people have, and they have portable cell phone sites mounted on trailers that they can set up in a matter of an hour or two.
Right. That's very. Right. Yeah, that's very good. I see this. I'm looking at the geography of where they're saying, the storm's going to hit, and it looks to me like they're calling for a landfall on Tuesday of a Cat 4 magnitude somewhere between Melbourne and Miami, which is interesting. I see the Air Force has put all their aircraft out of Homestead, way down in the southeast, and I'm listening to the civil authorities, the governor, and talking about where they're staging things from, and it just seems like they would be safe to stage things up, in Hialeah or on the West Coast, but shoot right across 75. They could shoot right in from 75 into the area and that sort of thing. So or home. It looks.
Go ahead, Glenn.
Like they could. Yeah, it looks like they could use, Hialeah on the West Coast and Homestead down in the southeast corner as staging areas to swoop in right after the hurricane passes. But I think they're saying they're going to be bringing stuff in mostly from Orlando and from the north. Just curious. That's all I wanted to mention.
Okay, well, thank you, Glenn. So they're predicting a Category 4, Tom, for this storm to hit Florida.
I don't really know, John, but it could be.
That's what Glenn
pretty
said.
Bad.
A Category 4, and the thing about these hurricanes is they linger, and they can stay in one spot with those high winds for 12 hours, 24 hours, doing massive damage because they linger so long. And we see there's basically two highways that go north-south, interstate highways, one on the east and one on the west side of Florida. And we've seen this multiple times where people wait until the storm's almost there, then they decide to get on the highway with all their neighbors, several million people at the same time. It doesn't work out too well, does it?
No, it doesn't. I was in some of that in Houston years ago, and I can't remember. 45, I think, it was out of Galveston going north through Houston and near Texas City and all that. And John, it was just gridlock. It was horrible, and people trying to get away from that hurricane. There was a hurricane coming in. There's some bad storms. It was a mess. But yeah, you have to plan ahead for things like that. But it does turn those highways into parking lots.
It does, and it seems like after that's happened 2 or 3 times, people would wake up and smell the coffee. That don't do that. Don't wait until everybody's on the highway at the same time. But it just happens over and over again, doesn't it?
It really does. No, we don't learn from our mistakes, but that's what happens. Yeah, it does happen over and over, and it's not a good scenario. I think it's wise to have printed maps also. Everybody wants to rely on this GPS and their cell phone, but if those systems are out of commission and you don't know how to use a map, you're just going to be sitting there twiddling your thumbs. I like to have printed maps for the area that I'm going to be traveling in. That's really a good thing to have.
Well, the best map that for traveling around this country is the ones that truckers buy. They're spiral bound, large format, 11 by 14 inches, I think, or maybe 11 by 16, and they're all laminated. So if you spill a little coffee on them, it won't just wreck the map. You're going to spend some money for them, but it's a great reference to have for the entire lower 48. And I may include Alaska and Hawaii also, I guess, all 50 states, and maybe parts of Canada. But those laminated, spiral-bound map atlases that the truckers get at the truck stops. That's what you want.
That's right. That's right. What do those things cost? I wouldn't mind having one of those myself.
I don't know offhand, but it looks like Glenn may be back here. Glenn, are you back?
Yeah. Hi, John. Hi, Tom. Just wanted a quick correction and a quick addendum. My map had collapsed here when I was talking to you before, and while it's true that Naples is that Hialeah rather is just a hair west of Miami, it's like right in the same complex. I meant to say Naples, Florida, for them to bring stuff in from, like on 75. It just should be, interesting about how in view of all these evacuations and stuff, how they get stuff in after the fact. I also wanted to mention, of course, 6 meters. Plug the 50 megahertz range. Tom was talking about the AM bands and 6 meters. It cracks me up. It was bigger back in the 60s and 70s when people didn't mind having a radio strapped under their dash and a long antenna on the back of their car. But 6 meters is I think probably a really good band for emergency communications and just the terms of it being regional and the distances involved. What does Tom think of that?
That's very true, Glenn, and I'm glad you brought that up. That's very true, and a good thing to remember is many of these new ham rigs that are HF-based 100-watt units, most of them include 6 meters, 50 to 54 megahertz, so you can operate all
Gentlemen,
the
we are out of time.
and FM.
We are out of time. Glenn, thank you. Tom, thank you.
Thank
We'll
you,
be back
John.
after the break. Stay tuned. All right, we're back, ladies and gentlemen. J.R. Moore here on Friday, the 30th day of August, next to last day of the month. Proper tip of the day, I want to encourage all of you to spend time with your team. Spend time working together. Spend time playing together. Spend time praying together. Those are all different aspects of human behavior and human involvement, and it's important to know all those aspects of your team members, so just keep that all in mind. We've got a patient waiting in the green room, my friend, my personal physician, Dr. Lynn Wilbert, D.C. We're going to be talking about health-related matters, and it's been a couple of weeks since I've been here with Doc. I've had a couple of Fridays where I've had some conflicts, and it's good to be back with you. Good morning, Doctor.
Greetings, John. Welcome back.
Well, thank you, sir.
Time while you were gone.
Thank you. Well, Tim does a good job, and is your website up and running? That's my first question.
It is not. It is not. It's still working. My webmaster took a little vacation. Quite a vacation, but we're still working on it. So I anticipate sometime this next week or two.
Well, that'd be great. In the meantime, what's that phone number people can contact you at?
This is my personal cell. It's area code 314-495-6480. 314-495-6480.
All right. Well, sir, it's a fast-changing world in a lot of ways. I get out a lot. I know you do go other places other than the golf course, and so you do see some people. But more and more, when I'm in public, I see American adults who are struggling. They're struggling to walk. They're struggling to move. They're struggling to take a full breath of air. That's not the way life is supposed to be, is it, sir?
It is not, John, and I've observed the same thing, that for some reason, and these are not old people, these are people of all ages, maybe teenagers on up. They're having difficulty for a number of reasons, but the main reason is lifestyle. We've been duped into thinking that the lifestyle of American people is one you should endeavor in. I don't think so. I think we're 29th on the list now, where there's 28 other countries where you could go and live, and the possibility of you living longer would be greater than living in this country.
There's about 30. I think there's about 30 countries, including third world countries, have a greater longevity than we do.
Yes, absolutely. I know we dropped down a couple of notches in the last couple of years as opposed to going the other way. See, we're not getting any healthier because the healthcare in this country is really sick care. And you have evidence of that when you'll hear a commercial on television that says, this drug is for this and this and this and this, and you may have this and this and this and this. And the next time you're at your doctor, ask your doctor if this drug is right for you. So now everybody who's taking medications, instead of anticipating the possibility, and it's a very strong possibility, of getting off of the medications at some point, because here's what we don't consider, most people. You show up and all of a sudden you have to take a medication. Let's just use the common one, the blood pressure medication. They usually give you two. One to regulate fluid so that the heart doesn't have to work as hard, and another one to regulate the pressure inside the vessels. Well, those two more drugs. I had a guy, he fought in the Korean War, and he says, Doc, I barely made it to the 8th grade. But when I went to my medical doctor, I only had 2 things. And then he tells me that I could have 9 more if I take this drug. Now, it seems to me like 9 plus 2 equal 11. I don't want 11. So I'm not taking that. Just simple logic. See, once you put something inside your body, as in a food or medication or supplement, a food supplement, a vitamin or a mineral, your body goes to work to figure out what to do about that. You don't. You don't know what to do with it. Your body is designed to handle what you put in your body, put it where it's supposed to go, use what it's supposed to use. However, medications, the reason why you stop making a medication is because you stop making it. The pharmacy inside your body, the pineal gland, for some reason stopped making the medication. And so in a closed circulatory thermodynamic system, known as your circulatory system, blood vessels, veins, that's how things get from place to place. It's your highway system of your body. And when that starts to increase pressure anywhere, it increases pressure everywhere. So what would be one of the reasons why you would increase pressure in your circulatory system? Well, one of them would be running. If we broke into a sprint, we would increase pressure. The lungs, which, by the way, there's 2 of them. That's why they're the major pumps of the body. The lungs, the respiration rate picks up. The heart rate picks up. You start getting glucose from somewhere. The blood, maybe because you're not running. And then when you stop running, you're breathing harder than when you started. But you didn't notice that while you were running. And the reason for that is while you're running, that is a state of emergency for your nervous system. It's not going to ask you why you're running. It's just going to respond to the fact that you are running. So everything increases except for digestion. Digestion shuts down. The blood flow from the organs gets shunted to the muscles so that you can keep running. Now, if you're running on purpose, it'll do the same thing. If you're running from a bear to save your life, it'll just do more of it. If you're running in your mind, it's the same thing as running in real life. And so if each of us on the call over the break, we just go outside and run up and down the block for the 3 minutes, come back, check the blood pressure to be elevated, it'll go down in a few minutes, depending on the condition of your cardiovascular system. But it should go down if you're not running. If it doesn't return to normal, and I take normal, it's real easy, 120 over 80. I mean, that's normal for most people. But if it doesn't go down, then why? If it went up when you were running, then it's normal for it to go up when you're running. But I'm not running. Yes, you are. You're running in your mind. You're running in your mind, and you don't stop. It's an imaginary bear chasing you. That's called the pressures of life, the stressors of life, the stress and the pressure, the stressors of life. And see, in nature knows what to do with stress. Nature knows exactly what to do when there's a warm air front and the cold air front, the low pressure and the high pressure. When they get together, we're going to have a thunderstorm. It's going to do something with that perturbation. Yeah, the action of being perturbed, there's that word. Nature knows how to deal with perturbation. Humans, we're part of nature. Most of us haven't learned how to let it go, how to deal with the stresses in our life, the things that we cannot control, the stuff that makes us upset. Oh, make you upset? Nothing makes you upset. Nothing
you make
makes
yourself
you
upset. You make yourself upset. Doctor, I did some quick homework here. The latest study I can find on longevity, only 2 years old, puts 42 countries ahead of the United States of lifespan. 42 countries, including a number of third world countries, even places like Puerto Rico, for example, have a longer lifespan. Finland, Ireland, the Cayman Islands, Spain, places that are hard to find, like the Faroe Islands. Where in the world are the Faroe Islands? But so, and I doubt that any of them. It's up near the Arctic Circle, by the way, Northern Europe, Faroe Islands. I doubt any of these countries spend. Well, I know they don't spend as much per person on what's allegedly, and I emphasize the word allegedly, called health care. None of them spend as much per person as we do in this country, and all these 42 countries have a longer lifespan, don't they, sir?
That's exactly right. That's why I don't say it's health care in this country. It's sick care. It's sick care. Now, I can tell you the last time I used health insurance was when I was 11 or 12 years old. Well, it wasn't mine. It was my mom's health insurance. I was in the hospital for a couple of days for a broken finger or something like that. And since that time, I've embarked on a path of being reasonably healthy, because when they told me they could take my tonsils out, I changed my mind about getting my tonsils out, because everybody in the neighborhood was going to the hospital, hanging out for 3 days, eating Jell-O and ice cream. Sounded good to me until he gave me the option. Next time they swell up, we'll take them out. Well, I never told anyone I had a sore throat ever again.
All right. I wasn't given that option. I was very young. I think I was 3 years old. I was not given the option. And it took 5 adults to hold me down, one on each appendix and one on my head. I knew they were trying to kill me with that gas. But I gave it the best fight that a tough little 3-year-old could give it.
As a 3-year-old. Yes. See, they were, around our time, they were routinely taking the tonsils when they swell up.
That's right.
There was something going on around that time. I don't know what was going on. I was too young to observe. But they would just take your tonsils. I still happen to have mine. As a youngster, all the way through high school, I had an upper respiratory, quote-unquote, asthma. I had a first period in the basement, an A period in the basement, and my first period was on the 3rd floor. Sometimes I didn't make it. Sometimes I was stuck in between because I couldn't finish breathing. And that little breather, that little steroid, that albuterol that people still inhale on, I did not like it at all. And so when I finished high school, 2 things I told myself. I said, self, you're going to figure out how to be healthy, and you're never going to go back to school again because you don't have to. Well, one of those things came true. I ended up going back to school a lot because I'm interested in learning. However, I got a hold to a book. It's called The Vitamin Bible. The Vitamin Bible is written by Earl Mendel. I don't know if Dr. Mendel is still alive. Last I heard he was. He's a pharmacist, but he has a master's degree in nutrition. And so I'm reading through the book, and one of the things that came out and still sticks to my mind today, that if you eat fruits and vegetables, take vitamins and minerals, your body has the raw material, and he mentions exercise, your body has the raw materials to heal. So right about that time, I got into physical fitness. I learned to run all the way down Douglas. I rode my bicycle up until about 28 degrees, from work to school to the karate studio to home. I got myself all the way in shape to where I don't have a respiratory problem. See, the body is capable of healing. We just need time and the right thing to do. Most of the people in this country believe that if they take medication, that it will help them. That's not true. It will help you stay alive because you haven't corrected any aspect of your lifestyle, whether it's eating, drinking pure water, exercising, breathing, getting proper rest at the proper time, controlling your thoughts, feelings, and emotions. If you're not paying attention to those aspects of your lifestyle, then it becomes, what's the word? You become inured, E-N-U-R-D. You become calloused to the fact that you're not sleeping straight through the night. You become callous to the fact that you're not taking deep breaths. You're not aware of the fact that you skipped over a couple of breaths for a few seconds. You're breathing from your chest. That's an emergency breath. Breathing should come from the abdomen. That's healing. So you can't be in healing and emergency, which is running from the bear. You can't be in those states, those two states simultaneously. They are opposite of each other. That's almost like being in two places at one time. That's impossible. Impossible. So you're either healing or you're running from the bear. And again, in human land, the proverbial bear is emotional upsetness of any kind about anything. And the reason why it's a bear is because we weren't supposed to have that feeling. Nature doesn't get upset, which is what I mentioned. You know, if you get inside of an oyster and that little grain of sand irritates the lining of the oyster, what does the oyster do? Encapsulates it with this liquid that hardens, and we call it a pearl. Oh, my goodness. Something valuable to us saves the oyster's life. The most prolific diamond mines on the planet are in the continent where the oldest mountains are. That would be Africa. So when the rock mass shifts and compresses and turns to cold, and it continues to compress, perturbation, it turns into a valuable diamond of all kinds, really. So what happens when humans get perturbed about something? You go to emergency, and you shut down all healing medications that you make, and that pharmacy factory inside of you is called the pineal gland. It's called the pituitary. The other P, pituitary, it makes all of the medicines, all of the drugs that the pharmacy outside makes, and even more. In fact, there's many drugs that your pituitary makes that they still can't make.
Hold that thought, Doctor. Hold that thought. We got a break. Call number is 800-313-9443.
Republic Broadcasting Network depends on listener support of our advertisers and of our sponsors. We'd like to especially thank all of you who have taken advantage of our fundraiser with FrontSite Bonus. Those who are now FrontSite members, please train as soon as possible for your sake and for that of our nation. And please consider sharing your training and what you've learned when you arrive home. Republic Broadcasting Network has to stop promoting this fundraiser on air and on the website in just a few days. Dr. Ignatius Piazza, president of FrontSite, made a gracious exception to his no media rule for us at Republic Broadcasting Network. Thank you, Dr. Piazza. And once you've been to Frontsite, feel free to call your favorite host and share your experience on the air. We can continue this fundraiser without media help, but it'll be totally up to the listeners to spread the information. Please call Dan Sutterfield in Missouri at 573-465-2356, 573-465-2356. That's 573-465-2356.
All right, we're back, ladies and gentlemen. Jared Moore here on Friday the 30th of August. We're going on a cruise. It'll be fun. If you want it to be, it could be romantic. It will be informative. You'll spend time with myself, Leon Green, some of the other folks we have here on my show. We're leaving Florida the 9th day of February, returning a week later, the 16th day of February. All the details are at my website. It'll be a fun cruise. I'm looking forward to it. I hope you can join us. If you don't have internet access, you would like our cruise director to mail you a nice full-color brochure, give our cruise director a call. Our cruise director is Betsy Murphy. Her telephone is 636-530-9502. The hurricanes will be finished by then, by the way. Betsy's number is 636-530-9502. Visiting with Dr. Lynn Wilbert. If you need private consultation with Dr. Wilbert, just give him a call at 314-495-6480. Let's continue, Doctor.
All righty. Yeah, we were just warming up here on about the 8th hole on the golf course is about when I get warmed up. Those days are gone when I was in my 30s and I could warm up instantly. The body changes physiology decade by decade. In fact, that's how we learned physiology is by decade. For instance, if a 20-year-old came into the office with a chief complaint of lower back pain, well, most likely it's neuromusculoskeletal at 20 years old. If a 50-year-old came in with the same complaint, lower back pain, then we would look more organic and then muscular second. And so the more decades we add to our life, the more we've been around. And it's like a vintage vehicle. We must learn to take care of our bodies. And what you see in the media doesn't encourage that. It encourages you to get two for the price of one, get a free Happy Meal, or get a toy.
Yeah.
In your Happy Meal.
Would you like to supersize that?
Yes. Oh, sure. And then consequently, before you know it, you're supersized. And I know there was a movie out a decade or so ago, Supersize Me. 25-year-old guy, his fiance was a vegetarian chef, and he decides to embark on 30 days of eating nothing but McDonald's hamburger food. Week 1, he was miserable. Week 2, he was addicted. Week 2.5, he had the earmarks because he had a team with him, a cardiologist, internist. Everybody was checking him every step of the way, and they were encouraging him to stop his experiment because he had all of the earmarks of chronic degenerative disease. You name it, he was headed that direction. And so he decided not to. By the end of the 30 days, he was depressed. He had gained maybe, I'm going to say 15 pounds, but he looked like he had been run over by something. And the fact that he was 25, I'm thinking allowed him to stay alive. And so when I mentioned earlier the imaginary bear, the imaginary bear is emotional upsetness. Now, aside from trauma, I mean physically running into something harder than your body, and I take my hat off to your bride. She did not believe in anything that medicine had to offer, period. And she was brave enough to maintain that stance. One of my early mentors, he says, if you have cancer and you undergo chemotherapy and radiation and your cancer goes away, you didn't have cancer. You just survived the radiation and the chemo. I went, whoa. Now, that's a profound statement. But they routinely recommend it. Why? Because it's pharmaceutical money. They get paid a lot. I have no idea what it is, but I know it's a lot. It's a lot of money, and it does nothing but compromise the immune system. In a similar way, medications that you take compromise your system as well. They compromise your healing system because here's how all medications work. You take a foreign substance and put it in your body, and your body says, hey, what's this? It's a foreign substance. Well, it just has side effects. Some of those things won't happen. That's not true. Everything it has listed, and you can read the little tiny writing, or you can go on the internet and find out what this drug does to you, and it might happen rare and unexpected. Not true. You put it in your body, this is what's going to happen. And so here's how all medications, I say all, there's very few alls. Well, all people who are alive are breathing, but that's an all. But this is how all medications work. It's a foreign substance. It's perceived as a threat to your physical body. So now your survival system has to address the threat.
Hold that thought, doctor. Hold that thought. Call number is 800-313-9443. We'll be right back.
You are tuned in to the Republic Broadcasting Network. Visit our website by going to republicbroadcasting.org.
Ladies and gentlemen, J.R. Moore here. We have a special promotion going on at Republic Broadcasting. This is a fundraiser for Republic Broadcasting involving the energy cleaner. Mail me a postcard. My address is at my website at thelibertyman.com. We pick a postcard every other Thursday. When your postcard is drawn out, you get to buy an energy cleaner for $215 instead of $285, $70 discount. $200 goes to Republic Broadcasting. You also get a 10% discount on my mattress pads. So get those postcards in, put your name, your telephone number, your email address on there, and when your postcard is drawn, you get to get an energy cleaner for $215 instead of $285. Mattress pads, 10% off. Help us out at Republic Broadcasting and help yourself to get an energy cleaner at a deep discount. It's a win-win situation for everybody. We hope you can get these postcards in soon. Thank you very much.
Tired of being lied to by mass media? It's growing more and more apparent today that news is received less and less through standard media outlets. Even with a growing audience every day, RBN is beginning to direct more efforts into social media. Social media and the use of the internet is fast becoming the primary source of people for news, regardless of demographic. RBN has set out to provide some of the best news on the internet through republicbroadcasting.org, and also has begun to use the tools to our advantage by way of social media. Republic Broadcasting is now operating a Facebook page to function as yet another avenue to have our collective voice reach new audiences across not only America, but across the globe as well. The Facebook page features not only news, but also an RBN player to listen to our broadcast. Get involved by visiting facebook.com/Republic Broadcasting and liking our page and share it with your friends and family, because you can handle the truth.
All right, we're back, ladies and gentlemen. J.R. Moore here on Friday, the 30th of August. My website is thelibertyman.com. That's thelibertyman.com. Got a couple of interesting parcels of real estate for sale. The newest one just posted a couple of days ago, 21.5 acres over in Texas County, is 2 counties away from me. Has a nice year-round live spring on it. Need to check that out. There's some great building sites. We're having a Labor Day sale on energy cleaners. Begins immediately. It goes until midnight Monday night, Labor Day. $25 off energy cleaners, 10% off mattress pads. When you place your order, you pay full price. I refund the difference manually. I'm not going to change my automated system just for a 3-day sale. So that's the Labor Day sale on energy cleaners. You can place your order by calling my toll-free order line. Don't ask my order takers about the Labor Day sale. They won't have a clue what you're talking about. Just go ahead and place the order, and I'll take care of refunding the difference. The toll-free order line is 800-592-9543. I say again, 800-592-9543. Visiting with Dr. Lynn Wilbert. If you got a question or comment, give us a call here at Republic Broadcasting at 800-313-9443. Let's continue, Doctor.
All right. There are more. We were discussing how all medications work. You take something from the outside, which is, for the most part, it's conceived in the laboratory, but it has a plant-based source, most medications. And so they change it. They put some chemicals in there to make the body respond. And then, see, remember that our organism, our body, our physical body, our nerve system, everything that makes up our body, that design is perfect. It never changed from the beginning. The design of the human being is perfect. And what I mean by that is that it is a perfect stimulus response organism. You can't change the response once you provide the stimulus, whether the stimulus is real or perceived. Let's ponder on that for just a minute. If you perceive that a person is attacking you, but you don't have any visual evidence yet, then you're automatically going to respond. Here's another example. You're driving down the street, and this is a wonderful afternoon, sun shining, you got the sunroof open, you're playing your favorite tunes. You're not even paying attention to the speedometer. Oh, no, those winding, curvy roads in southwest Missouri, oh, it's so beautiful. You're not even paying attention. All of a sudden, it's whoop, 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 lights and sound. And what happens? Your heart picks up the pace. You immediately start looking for your papers. You put on your emergency flashers. You pull off on the side of the road, and hopefully it's safe. And then the flashing lights and the siren goes right past you. He's going to an emergency, not you. But what did you do? You perceived that you had been speeding and you were getting ready to have a friendly conversation with a friendly officer, and he went right past you. However, what was your physiological response from a perceived event that never happened? Your heart rate picked up, your head's pounding, you go, whew, sure glad it wasn't me, and then you calm down instantly. No, you don't. You don't calm down instantly. It takes you 15 minutes, 30 minutes, hour in order for you to calm down. Why? Because you perceived an emergency and you secreted a hormone. Once the hormone is secreted, once you put something in your body will respond perfectly to that chemical. Whether you create it or you put it in, it's going to respond perfectly. And so now that you secreted the adrenaline, you got to use it. You got to use it. If you don't use the excess adrenaline, then you go, oh, when you get out the car, you arrive at your destination, say, oh, I find myself still, because you didn't use the adrenaline that you created from a perceived imaginary emergency. Yes, We call that SEMO, subconscious emergency. E, emotional. I, imaginary. M, memory. O, override. So the subconscious, imagine that it was an emergency associated with an emotional event that didn't happen because, did I say imagine? Yes. And so you go into memory and you override the present moment with a perceived moment, which can be construed as the past moment or the future moment. It doesn't matter which moment, because your healing system cannot determine which moment it is in your life. From the moment you were created, which is an energy creation, makes us kind of like our creator. We were energy beings before we were physical beings. And then we became a physical being with an energy field around us. And so now that system developed into who we are now, no matter what stage you are in life. There's developmental stages. We perceive emergencies even though they haven't happened. Well, here's the deal about the subconscious. It can't tell what's real or not. Go on YouTube and look up Ella Fitzgerald, is it live or is it Memorex commercial? And the Reader's Digest version of that is she's in a sound booth, and there's a goblet. And Ella Fitzgerald's one of those rare human beings that could, with her voice, shatter, cause molecules that bind glass as we see it, cause those molecules to disperse. They just go, hey, we can't hold on here. And so she hits this note, and the goblet shatters. And they had a recording device. At that time, it was a cassette tape. They recorded her voice, put in another goblet, hit rewind, play. What happened to the goblet? It didn't know that it was a recording. It responded the way all things do in nature, respond perfectly. The goblet shattered. Tagline, is it live or is it Memorex? In other words, the goblet couldn't tell the difference between a recording or a live voice. Brilliant, brilliant marketing, brilliant. But that's exactly how your subconscious works as well. It doesn't know if it's live or is it Memorex. So why would you relive an experience that you lived through, a past tense experience that you lived through, and, it kind of hurt your feelings because you let it? I mean, you got, borderline vehemently upset because there was a family member and you thought they loved you. And you're still holding on to that past tense experience. Well, here's a news flash. The only purpose the past serves is to learn. The only purpose the past serves is to learn. What do you learn? I don't know. Perfectly normal answer. What'd you learn? I learned to let go. What'd you learn? Well, I learned not to do that. Well, no, you can't learn not. That's a negative lesson. Lessons are not negative. All learned lessons are positive. Oh, there's that all again. And so if you hear the sound of my voice, that means that you've learned from every experience you've had. And here's how I know, because my grandmother told me this. Son, if it didn't kill you, it made you stronger. I went, excuse me? Yes. If you lived through a past tense moment, it made you stronger. We just haven't assigned learning to it. We haven't assigned learning to that past tense moment. What'd you learn? I don't know. I'm still here. I'm still learning. Let me focus on the lesson of the moment. I'll figure that out sometime later when I'm sitting watching the sunset, sipping on my favorite beverage. And you know what? That's what I learned from that experience. I've learned that no matter what anybody else does or says, I'm in control of my thoughts. I'm in control of my feelings. I'm in control of my emotions. No one makes me run from an imaginary bear unless I choose to. And when you choose to run from the bear, you shut down all healing drugs. What's the pharmacy factory inside the body? Inside the brain? It's called the pituitary. So whenever you're running from the imaginary bear, the name of that bear is SEIMO, SEEIMO, and what I do is I track down SEIMO, where it's stored in your subconscious. Why is it interrupting your healing? Why is it interrupting your sleep? Because it is a perceived imaginary emergency. So now you must take a drug, because even while you think you're sleeping, you're not making healing drugs. You're getting up every couple of hours going to the bathroom because your adrenals are engaged because you're running from the bear. Oh, yeah, adrenals are fluid regulators. And so if you're getting up, you're still running. The adult human easily needs 5, and they're starting to say 8, but anywhere between 5 to 8 hours of sleep a night is the required amount of sleep for you to metabolically repair and replace and rejuvenate. And so when you wake up the next morning, theoretically speaking, you're supposed to be rejuvenated. Yeah. Have enough energy to go to the next 12, 14, 16 hours, whatever your lifestyle requires. But no, you go to bed tired and wake up tired, you're not healing. You're not making healing drugs. Your energy system, your subconscious uses more energy to heal when you're healing. That means you have to be sleeping. It's 80-20. 80% of the energy is used if you're sleeping 5 hours through or 8 hours. 20% when you're awake, the other 16 hours. Let's just say we get an average of 8 hours of sleep, 5 to 8, 6 to 8. It varies who you talk to. I sleep straight through each night. And because I prepare, I turn off the emergencies. That I perceive something that was an emotional bear, an emotional upsetness in my day? No, I rarely do, because I check that. If you knew the devastating consequences of getting emotionally upset for any reason, I mean, if your life is being threatened, that's an automatic response. You know that one, John. I do too.
That's right.
So
That's
I
right.
avoid life-threatening situations, physically life-threatening situations. However, the emotional upsetness is an imaginary life-threatening situation because you weren't supposed to be in it. And so imagine if you had an IV attached to your arm and McDonald's hamburgers was going in there 24/7. You wouldn't live long. Period. You'd be gone. The healthiest of persons will be gone. And so what if you are 24/7 less than positive thinker? You're killing yourself. Your thoughts, killing yourself, because now you're not making water-regulating drugs. You're not making blood sugar-regulating drugs. You're not making blood pressure regulating drugs. You're making run from the imaginary bear drugs. What's it called? SEIMO. Exactly. Imaginary, but a profound, real effect. I had a client come in one day and say, Dr. Wilbur, my medical doctor, and I encourage everyone, if you choose a medical doctor, last time I went to one was 1994. So now I have a Medicaid card just in case I want to go. They force you into that program. And so she came in, she said, no, doctor, my medical doctor said that I was pre-diabetic. I go, oh, really? What does that mean? He says, you don't have diabetes yet, but you could have it down the road. And I'm thinking to myself, I wonder what he said. And so I asked, I said, well, what did he say? He said, here, take this drug. And what's the drug supposed to do? It's supposed to keep me from getting diabetes. And I guarantee you, when you read the direct effect, it's no longer side effect, it's direct effect. Slash outside, rare, and put direct. It will happen to some degree. Depends on the individual. And I said, he gave you a pre-diabetic drug. Well, you know what? I'm pre-diabetic too.
Well, I guess you could say everybody's pre-diabetic under those circumstances.
Right.
We've got a caller on hold here, Doctor. We have a caller on hold. We got Pat in Texas. Good morning, Pat.
Hi. I'm sorry. I hope I'm not in order talking this way, but I hear people talking all this, and we have to take care of ourselves. He's right. You can't live on pizza and beer and expect a good heart and all that. You got to take care of yourself, and it's a requirement to do that according to the Bible, the way I read it. And I know Jesus said it's not what goes in that defiles, but what comes out. But, and it says exercise profit a little, but it doesn't say nothing. So, I think what we need to do is be led of the Lord. Because if we're led of the Lord, we have a power to become a son of God. And you want to be a son of God. Everybody born's not a son of God. And I just want to tell you that I'm afraid that hurricane is going to go to Orlando because of the way the Lord is leading me. And the reason is because it's gay weekend at Disney World. Now, they have Holy Land there, too. Maybe they might pray it away. But if you pray judgment away, it's going to come again. So what people are just going to have to do is realize that our actions cause things, especially if it's the Bible. Like God said
Pat, that's not true. That's not
God
true.
said it'd have its way in a whirlwind. It didn't say that he would cause a whirlwind, or that somebody else could cause a whirlwind, but he allows it to come. Oh, no, I'm 76 years old. I've been saved 50 years, and I'm in experience. I mean, I've got experience. Okay. I don't have to read a book. I just have to read the book.
We'll let Doctor respond after the break. Thank you for your call, Pat. We got a break. We'll be right back. All right. We're back, ladies and gentlemen. J.R. Moore here, visiting with Dr. Lynn Wilbert. If you need a private consultation, would like to be Dr. Wilbert's client, he'll be glad to talk to you. His telephone number is 314-495-6480. Doctor, do you have any response to Pat here before we move on?
Yes, I have a direct response. I was just kidding with her when I said it's not true. She's earned the right to observe what is true, and it is true. And she's right on target with everything. Man has this ability to affect his environment, both external and internal. That's the only aspect. We are the only aspect of creation that can do that. Beavers cannot change the environment. Lions can't change the environment. Birds can't change the environment. Man has changed the environment.
I got a beaver I'd like to introduce you to who keeps plugging up the drain pipes on my pond.
Oh,
changing the local environment. We haven't figured out how to get this guy yet, but
look, he keeps going. Hey, I want to live here forever. I don't want to move downstream.
Well, I understand what you're saying. Yeah, I understand what you're saying. We're human beings are sentient beings. We are sentient beings, and whether these other creatures are not.
Yeah, and so that's why I love listening to. I call them my seniors. My mom is 90 years old, and no, you're not sorry. You just say what's on your mind, and we just pardon you. You say, hey, I've been around long enough. I've earned the right to know what is true. And I just listened to her. So thanks, Pat, for that insight, because man, in and of itself, we can affect the environment. And so since we have control over our internal environment, it's what we do. We have the mind of our exemplar. He showed us that you don't have to go around upset all the time. How many times should you let it go? How many times should you forgive? Up to 77. Well, who's keeping count? The two highest personages on the planet that I know of, and every place else too, the Creator and His Son. The Creator went to instantaneous forgiveness for billions of people that had not been born yet. And so here you are, mere mortal. You're going to hold on to something that another mortal human being did to you. You don't know what you're doing. And then His Son, one of the last words out of His mouth, hey, Pops, let them go. Forgive them. They don't know what they're doing. They have no idea what they're doing. And so those two people can engage on forgiveness, let go. That's all it means. Not let go with a hint of resentment. That's like being a hint of pregnant. It doesn't happen. If you let it go and learn from it and move on and realize that we have more to learn, how to be more loving, how to be more joyful, how to be more peaceful. And John, you started off with the observation. Everyone you see that has that expression on that face, you know, that frowny face, they're not loving. They're not peaceful.
Doctor,
there's a road back.
Have a great
awesome,
holiday.
John.
Have a great
you
holiday.
Too, fabulous. Right. Have a great one.
That's it for today. It's it for the week. It's medical supplies, anti-20 essential oils. Now while you can. Please do a fun, safe, productive day and a happy and safe holiday weekend. God bless you.